All right. All right. Day 25. The prompt is tempting. And I mean that in double the way. So today we're probably going to try to do, dare I say, an environment. One. I don't know how I'm going to do this. It's going to probably be very difficult. And let's give it a shot. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. What the heck? Who set you to that color? Oh, these things are not big. Oh man. Guess let's draw one at a time. Center this. It's making me uncomfortable. That's so far off the edge. Maybe I'll try to do. Maybe I'll rely on some pointism. I don't know. I don't know where I'm gonna go with this one. This one's very difficult. I could simplify it, but then it wouldn't look as cool, I think. It's just gonna be like amorphous blobs for most of these. What the heck? I don't know how people do small structures like this. You see a bunch of rods. Maybe that's it. Just do a bunch of small rods. What PC? You mean like the specs on the PC? I mean, the PC is something I'm running on a 3900X paired with a 2070 Super. Been like 4 years. Yeah. No, it hasn't been that long. Like 2.5 years. Yeah, I can game. I am a PC gamer, so, and I have a long history of gaming theory. I don't usually play horror games. Not because of the context, but more because there hasn't really been anything too interesting at the moment. What do you have in mind? I do have a long list of games. I typically don't do artwork. It's just for Inktober. I typically play games for game theory and whatnot. More of someone who's interested in design than the experience. I like watching people play games though. Again, more for the observation. There are some good, I mean, understandable if you think there are some good free horror games out there. There are free horror games that I can name for sure. I have. It's pretty alright. You can see the attraction. Do you particularly like horror games? Not sure about Linger. I don't really plan on playing any of them at the moment. Like horror games, but I guess it is Inktober, so one would naturally think about horror games. And it's getting to the end of Inktober. I made the structure a little too small. Definitely made you a little too small here. I didn't mean to do that. You don't really need that much. You know what the object is. I'm the same as you where I prefer watching people. I didn't quite say I prefer to watch people, but I do enjoy watching people. I just do not have much motivation for myself because a lot of things aren't particularly interesting at the moment from a personal standpoint. I like to be interested in what other people are interested in. to be aware of what they're interested in or perspective. If I had to choose, I probably would say I would love to play myself, but might be playing the game myself, just not as academically interesting to me. Hey. That's good enough. Let's do the other thing before. What games do I play? I play largely indie games. That's really the most accurate description I can find for you. I play games that are more on the innovation side than the mainstream at the moment. Generally speaking, I spend most of my time on niche gaming. Alright. Well, what have you played recently? The last thing I was doing before Inktober came about was I was playing a game called A Monster's Expedition. It's a Sokoban game. Sokoban games are games that involve pushing tiles or pushing an interactive object and solving puzzles with just pushing. I was juggling the game with another game called Library Runa. It's a narrative-driven alternative horror deck builder game. It's not really a deck builder. It's more like a card battler. Fairly heavily Eastern inspired. Eastern alternative horror. Yu-Gi-Oh would be a deck builder. You also play indie games. Do you have examples of these indie games? Perhaps I might be familiar with some of them. Yu-Gi-Oh is not an indie game. Oh, I was just asking. I do play Hearthstone, so as a mainstream, as a daily driver, I do play gaming as a service games. I have 1 or 2 gaming as a service games. PSO2, Neverwinter Online, and Hearthstone are my gaming as a service games. Piece of Bermuda, which is similar to the Isle. Hollow Knight is nice. A multiplayer dinosaur game called The Isle. I am not familiar with The Isle. What is the objective of the Isle game? Man, my perspective. I'm struggling with the perspective of these things. I'll just put some rocks here. I have no idea how to draw the rocks, so we're just gonna do some cuboidal sides. Not in proportion, but let's just keep finishing this before I decide. Perspective is a little bit right now. How am I picturing this perspective? Does it kind of look like this? Yeah. More like that. Okay. I have to keep that perspective plane in mind. You girls and I try to survive and no real objective, but fun. Oh, yeah. So there's another game. I don't remember. It's not a multiplayer game, but when I heard that title, it reminded me of... Only I remembered the name of the game. But it's a puzzler that involves the same concept. You consume to evolve, and it's more of a chess game, but it's a simulator as well. But it involves a heavier concept on user input. I don't think it's 2 players though. It's not a multiplayer game. The title is not a English word, it's more of a truncation. So it's very... I don't remember it anymore. I haven't played it myself, but it was a very cute indie game. It just went live, so I'm gonna go hang out with him, but it's not... Alright. Take care. Good luck. Oh no. I definitely don't know how to do that by hand. Oh boy. Trees are my bane. Definitely study a little bit on how this tree reference. A lot of like You can really make it look very rooty when I see. Okay. That? Eeh. Not, not quite, not quite the, not quite the elegant tree, that's for sure. Um. Hmm. I'll just say like roughly uh this size. And we're gonna put like lines there. All right. Seems okay. And then I guess we do like this grass going here. Guess we gotta put in like so you just gotta put in like random. I don't know how I'm gonna get this to look interesting. Like you can probably be pretty loose. We do some cross hatching or something. Does it have to make sense? That's the better question. Does this thing have to make sense? Oh yeah. I guess that would be the perspective. It would be like a ring. Oh, a ring. Haha. Ring around this. Like this. I was gonna like draw kind of like a makeshift. I've been watching Lord of the Rings. I've been watching Lord of the Rings, so I had to do at least a little bit. It's gonna be an environment drawing, so so we can add quite a lot of detail, but we want to get the basics down just because if I had to guess, I'm gonna run out of time to do like the little things. So let's just put like just I think that's good enough details on this side of things. Now, how do we make this side look interesting? Okay, so this thing is going to be really difficult. Well, guess people will hear that. Okay. I want to at least, so I need prominent like areas that I would to create dynamics. I need to make sure to create areas that I can surround this stuff with. So need to just mark the area. I'm gonna have trouble visualizing this though. Just have to imagine the lighting. Is this big enough? It's kind of big enough. We're not gonna color this because I have no idea how I'm gonna color this. But we are gonna do something I said yesterday. I do want to practice something that I mentioned yesterday about creating environments with like extreme volumes. I haven't done environment with extreme volumes yet. This is so... It's amazing what they can do with just omitting, and it still looks pretty. I think we can just like finagle and just add a few shapes here and there, and let the mine fill in. All I'm putting I'm just picturing the tower as just rods. I bet that's what it really actually just is, but it's kind of weird. I don't know. Okay. All right. So, I guess let's put in some... Let's ink this, I guess. Okay, so we're gonna try our best. I'm not sure if that's in perspective. All right. Okay. Man, so much to environment drawings. I'll just do some finagling. Our intuition, I guess. I'll more or less like fill in. Fine. Just drawing some lines. They don't have to be like incredibly accurate. It just doesn't have to be very chicken scratchy. And then we'll rely on our ability to mask the rough edges with some shading, some volume control. Maybe even some cross hatching. Some deliberate, some intentional loose handwork. Give it that pseudo rustic look, I guess. It's definitely not meant to look precise, because this isn't like a I'm not going for an ink drawing kind of thing. I'm doing this out of order for sure. It's best if I save the line details for later. Like fill in do the coloring and whatnot first, and then fill in the line drawing later. But since I'm not doing coloring, I tend to prefer to just add the details now. None of these stones actually make any sense. Wait. That makes a little bit more sense. It can just be like irregular shapes. It's fine. Seems pretty alright. Now the tree is a whole different story. So I'm gonna use like a more of a like a curly way of doing this. Just filling out the tree. This is a very jagged tree. It's had a lot of life, you know. Grew over a lot of hardships. It's a very healthy tree, just hanging out, unassuming. It's a good tree. I am not I am not drawing all those like leaf things. We're gonna shorthand this. I think I feel like we're gonna do some cross hatching probably. I haven't done this extensive line work in a while. That's a lot of line work. A lot of loose line work. Getting pretty fast at it though. Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at it. The perspective is a little weird. The size is a little weird. I think that's good enough. Good enough. We need to ground this. And we kind of need to ground these. This is my sorry excuse for grass. Is there anything else that needs grounding? I think generally speaking, most of the things that are attracting the attention are grounded. Except maybe this. So let's... That was a mistake, but... Alright. So let's, alright. All this stuff, we just need to... Okay. This theme is a little different. Now we want sharp edges. Like, really, really pronounced sharp edges. Just a contrast. I'm totally winging this for sure. Hopefully this ends up looking what it's supposed to look like. I'm intentionally making like specific lines darker and whatnot. Hopefully cut some corners on trying to mark where I want to like emphasize and whatnot. Oh, this part's gonna be difficult. I think it's gonna be nice to give it like a directionality of the... So we're gonna like make it more interesting. I don't know this is how the tower's done, like their Sauron's tower, but I'm gonna I'm gonna make it like kind of spirally, so it's like a little interesting. Hey, story. What is up? How are you? And then the top, we're just gonna make it like flat. So it's like an interesting looking structure. I have no idea what the tower actually looks like, but like I know roughly what it looks like, but there's no way I'm gonna be able to do that type of detail. Not in the time I have. Okay. And we're just gonna make smooth lines for this. And we want to shrink this. Look like it's coming to. All right. I don't know if we're gonna make it like super. Maybe we will. We'll draw the contrast. All right. So there's our. You're good? I'm doing pretty all right. I just got up. Not too long ago. But this is the line art for. Oh, I didn't mean to remove it. I'll keep that there. This is the line art for tempting. I started rewatching Lord of the Rings because I recently watched Ring of Power. And today we're gonna do some cross hatching. And maybe so one side has got to be lighter than the other side. So let's see how good our cross hatching is. Second attempt at cross hatching. And we're just gonna use just straight up just G-penning it. Okay. Where do I even start? Okay. There's got to be something to say. The right side is going to be just so much harder than the left side. The right side has no like it barely has any form. All right. So okay. Okay. It's gonna, you know what? Let's say, okay, so let's say, do we break up the direct light, or do we imagine two direct lights? Honestly, the right side is gonna be pretty easy, a lot easier, because of how everything has like a left side and right side. So today's story, what we were talking about yesterday about environment, like getting the, and like using your volume. So I thought today, since I didn't get a chance to do environments for a while, I was gonna do like 2 environments. This was yesterday's. You'll see what I mean by I didn't get a chance to do the background. So like the background is like, it looks more like glass because I didn't get a chance to do the line, like the form. There's no form in the background, so I just like emphasized the subject. That's all I did. I just stick with the subject because without the background it wouldn't need without the like the trees and stuff for the ambient lighting and whatnot, it would be fine. It would be like the character standing totally in darkness would be fine, but I didn't get a chance to finish the, like, all this stuff needs form, right? So I brought out the airbrush because I spent way too much time on the character. So today we're gonna do a proper maybe a proper, I'm not gonna color it though, I'm just gonna cross hatch and practice volume, because you can make an image look very good black and white, or cross hatching if you understand how volume works. So yeah, like, let me show you what it looks like. Whoops, I took the line away. Which layer is the line? I should really, oh yeah, like oh, I put in the block. So like it largely looks like this. That's what we originally saw, except on the block layer I put in the ambient light, which is the blue stuff, and then I outline with a brighter yellow, which is the direct light from its lantern. And that's what this originally looked like. It just basically looked like this. That's it. And then when you start piling in on the lighting, like I was trying to form the trees, right, just to give it a little, so this would be, I don't know what this is. Oh, this is like more form lighting, but I add the direct light, right? Here's the direct light, and then here's the form shadows. Look at how form shadows change the moment you add the moment you add like the direct light with the form shadow, and then you add occlusion, right? So this is occlusion. So yeah, form, occlusion on top of direct lighting, and then I added I try to form up the trees really quickly, and then you add like the environment form. This is the environment. And then I added some little details, just like a very nice little tiny details, and then you get the whole image. That's generally how it works. It's really, I'm telling you, the line art takes up like 80 to 90%. Like I would say the conception of the line art and the line art itself takes up 80% of the work. So storyboarding is really hard in my opinion. Like what I mean is the essence of animation, the essence of storytelling and like depiction is the storyboarding. It's the line art, the foundations. But what really, at the end of the day, what makes the impact emotionally turns out to be the less part of it. When I mean the less part is, I'm not saying the lesser, like of less value, but I mean pragmatically speaking, it's the part that you spend the least amount of time, like it's a disproportionate amount. You get a lot more for understanding, you get a bigger impact for understanding lighting and color and volume far more than, because you can't, like, I guess it's difficult to grasp the understanding of volume and light, but it's even more, in my opinion, pragmatically speaking, difficult to grasp storytelling and conception. So kudos to all those people who spend their lives conceiving things, like conceiving stories, conceiving narratives, dialogues. I feel that's extraordinarily abstract. And in the end of the day, when people consume these products, like you and I, we are taken away by we are taken and lifted away with emotion and like feelings and stuff, but that's often really truly, in my opinion, driven more by volume, contrast, and color. But we just keep that in mind because a lot of the brunt work is composition, line work, and story. Like the composition includes line work and story, so it's the composition that drives the foundational thing. But it's very difficult to perceive how difficult it is to do that. But color, volume, and stuff is very visceral. So it's tangibly, it's kind of like this is such a out of left field relative, but it's kind of like when people do sports, right? And they're like, oh no, you know, like sports, it's very taxing, it's very visceral. There's so much intuition that we're involved in physical sports. But then you start thinking about trivia and like esports and whatnot. It's abstractly difficult to demonstrate. You don't simply say, hey, do your brain get tired? Do you feel your brain getting tired? Well, technically, yes. Actually, the things that we find, it's ironic, this is very counterintuitive, but the things we find hard to perceive a lot of times are the things that we do most often because we stop paying attention to it. So for example, what is the hardest thing you are constantly doing when you're thinking back and recalling or drawing something? You're thinking about all the lines, all the structures, all the things you're forming, and they are the most difficult thing. But at the same time, we do it so often, it's hard to appreciate how difficult it is over time, because we, as a human race, tend to start to become numb to things that we do more often in frequency. That's just a theory. That's just my theory. It's like I have no way of demonstrating this or have any empirical data that would suggest. It's just a thought that perhaps it's not because we do it rarely. Perhaps it's because we do it so often that we just choose to ignore it. So we don't practice line arts. We don't I started art kind of on a whim, also by knowing another person, and their favorite part is coloring. Like they in fact, sometimes a lot of times I would hear like, you should just start coloring and then your line art can go back and detail it. But I generally visualize it the other way. I visualize all my pictures as lines before I go to color them. And then you can just like splash paint, get a few fundamentals down, and then good to go. Like this is out wildly loose, like absolutely ridiculously loose. And it took me, I would say when I started, it's like 45 minutes, ridiculously loose. All I imagined was, where are my edges? Look at this scene. All I see are these lines. That's all. I don't see the shade. I don't see the color. I just see, oh, that's an interesting shape. Oh, wait, that's an interesting shape. And I feel that's the telltale sign of a storyteller or a storyboarder like yourself, which I feel is no coincidence that you're the same way, because storyboarding requires the take-home message, the form. You're looking for the form. You're not, and then the rest, I want to say they kind of steal the thunder, in my opinion. If you were gonna separate between, perhaps, like if we're going in stages, the storyboarder comes first, it's like loose form, but the form creates the foundation, and then you have the illustrator, you know, like the next step, the illustrating, the going from conception of the storyboard to the actual illustrations. Then you fill in on the effects, animation, coloring. I mean, you could even throw in character design, because like a lot of times the character designer is separate from like the environmental designer, and then both those are actually separate from the storyboard person. But man, if I had to think of, it's not, I'm not saying it's fair or not fair, like I'm not making a statement like that, but it's very disproportionate if you understand how human behavior works right now. It could be different in the future. Do you know about color scripting? I don't know. Describe color scripting to me. All right, we're gonna start, while we do this, we're just gonna start randomly cross-hatching things. Oh man, this is gonna be brutal. Oh wait, maybe oh no, I screwed up. It should be, wait, did I put this on a different layer? No. Hold up. I forgot to start a new layer here, because it might not work out. Actually, you know what, let's do the mountain. The mountain one I'm more used to. So I put the I put the layer on top. All right, so the mountain one is probably going to be a little bit more intuitive, I would say. So actually, you know what, let's just do shading. There's no way I'm going to cross hatch all these edges. I'm going to be honest, there's no way. So let's just, I want all my edges first. So let's get my perspective down on this. I don't know, I imagine it's pretty obvious what the scene is supposed to be, hopefully. If it's not obvious, I'm doomed. Ha! I just made a pun. If it's not obvious, I'm pretty much doomed. I relate it a lot to a storyboard artist, but it's an artist that will do scene by scene on how the movie should be colored. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's quite literally color scripting. Yeah. So I don't know if you see color. I mean, like, see things in color now, or see things in music, or see things in picture. So like what I mean by that is a lot of times, you know, if you're a person who's spectating stuff, right, and you're just like, you hear the music, but you don't actually, you can feel the music, right? And that's kind of what I'm just like, it's like color scripting. It helps inform story. Like, it connects the mediums. If you have these volumes and you have a crew that can use a medium to connect the two, and color can do that. Like, color can bring the mediums together, like the words that describe the emotion of the color. And it's kind of like synesthesia, but like not really. It's kind of like a limited application of someone who would have synesthesia, where you see color. What I mean by you hear color, you see like, you not I didn't mean to say see. You hear color, like you experience color, things in color. So color tends to be a very wonderful, yeah, synesthesia. Yeah, so like color scripting reminds me of that, where music can be colorful, stories can be colorful, if you know what I mean. Mood can be colorful. So it's kind of like an interesting way to it kind of reinforced that idea that when you have a command of color, you can embody a lot of things without really consciously knowing it. So like when someone says like, ah, man, this piece makes me so sad, it wouldn't be necessarily processed like, oh, it's what is the major driving force in our color. And a lot of times when I hear music, I also see color. Like when music is playing, I think of color, like what the scene would look like. It's I don't think people who like to experience things on the fly wouldn't really be able to relate to this, but I feel you would relate to this as a storyboarder. When you, or like when as an animator and storyboarder, when you think of a scene, it's hard to separate it. When you think of a story, it's hard to separate those things. They come together, and at sometimes they come together so frequently it actually might narrow your ability to create. And that's why I like when other people share work with each other, because when you see what they think color is to matching the scene, for example, it could be a really gloomy scene to you but with a really bright color palette. How does that work? Well, for each individual, they have these predilections that associate these things together. Without experiencing other people's work, you would not be able to appreciate or attempt to start to appreciate. You might not ever empathize with it. Like, for example, my appreciation for dark hope, right? Hope in dark places, like Lord of the Rings and stuff, that's dissonant with what I would do as an artist. So, for example, that's why I'm actually, by the way, that's why I'm doing this. I recently watched Ring of Power, and then I rewatched Lord of the Rings, like Peter Jackson's first trilogy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and just how wonderfully hopeful yet despair is everywhere. And that's kind of what this is about. This is about tempting faith. Fate is the theme. That's why the I'm doing this for the prompt, tempting. There's a lot of things about Lord of the Rings that deals with temptation, like the one ring to rule them all, temptation of solace and peace, or temptation of adventure. The one of the central motifs in Lord of the Rings is temptation. It's human temptation. It's about man, like because Tolkien uses elves and dwarves and stuff to contrast the weaknesses, or those suggested weaknesses, and evaluation of the human condition, basically the man-human condition. And then elves and dwarves are hypothetically created to draw that juxtaposition, since the Lord of the Rings is the rise of man again. Like, that period is dealing with the fall of man and then the rise of man. And that's really cool. But whenever I hear The Hobbit, I don't know if you watch Lord of the Rings story or you're into it, but every time I hear the intro of the Shire, it's green. It's green, yellow, jumping purples around. That's what I think. I mean, I'm not gonna color the Hobbit that like this Hobbit dwelling you know, green, yellow with spotted purples, but that's what I see though. It's kind of fun. Okay, so man, how am I gonna do? Okay. I'm trying to get an idea of, I think we're gonna do 2 different light sources. So because I do want to do this in color. We'll do this in color in maybe sometime in the future or something. But I wouldn't mind doing this in color. I could make it like super red. Like super red. It would be pretty sweet looking, but that would take too long. We're just providing some dynamics. They're like, I don't even know how lighting works in this situation. It's like really complicated, but I'm just making it up. I'm going because I'm just trying to provide a semblance of volume and light source from areas. And I'm also providing form. This is gonna take a very long time. Send help. This is reminding me of my eagle thing. Like I genuinely just have no idea what I'm doing. Uh-oh. What is this big chunk? Like, why? I guess I'm gonna improvise. I have no idea. Oh, no, wait. Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing at the moment. Oops. It kind of looks like ice. Like I'm like making kind of looks like an ice rink right now. It's not my intent. I'm just putting like just ledges and stuff. Oh, jeez. All right. And then now we like reverse. We flip it and reverse it. Oh my gosh, freaking Missy Elliott song. Every time I think about when I think of flipping it. We'll do those later. You ever used a site clip drop? No. I use that as a way to kind of cheat on how I should like my work. Like what do you mean by how you like your work? Oh, how to light your work. Yeah. No, it dawned on me at the moment. No worries. I got it. I got it at some point. How is it done? Do you know? Like how does a lighting is done? Like how do they determine that? What is their bootstrapping method to try to get the lighting? I'm doing the things that I think I know how to do. So I'm trying to just fill in to see how the perspective. Do I want to change anything? They give you a light source that you can drag around. Oh, okay, so it's simulated light source. I see. Do they do style? Do they do styles too? It would be kind of cool. Like if they did like a data mine on styles. Like, hey, I want doom and gloom. What would doom and gloom look like? I have some I think to me I do some shortcuts that generally aren't that jarring, and it wouldn't fail too much, so to speak. But I don't know, they should, but I don't know, you can pick the color. I see. Yeah, for me, I do like, it's hard to describe, but I like really do just arbitrarily pick my I really do just be arbitrarily picking. I wouldn't consider myself I don't see, I would love to hear someone comment. I mean, I'm like, I'm not a I just, you know, don't have any formal schooling, and it would be really cool to have someone deconstruct if it's pretty apparent what I'm doing or how I'm doing it. I like to watch other people deconstruct their process, so so that when I'm doing my thing, I can start to think about what I'm doing in that context. Because I am doing something, the more I learn about some of the fundamentals, the more I can put it into context of the fundamentals that former schooling is doing. So like right now, before I used to just do this just intuitively, so I just guess and hope it works out kind of thing. And some might say like, oh, okay, well that's like nice, that's kind of like, you know, talent oriented kind of thing, and I'm like, I don't like the T word. I don't think I technically have an intuition. I think it's just I stare at things for a really long time. Like since I was young, when I watch things, like shows, movies, consume things, because of my habit of observing these things, I have a good recollection of the things that I'm trying to imitate. Or I mean, you know, technically a recreation is inspired off your experiences or what you choose to observe in your experiences. So I'm using that collective experience now, whether I consciously know I'm doing it or not. And I want to give that collective consciousness a voice, I guess. I want to break it down. Oh, I did it backwards. I like being evaluated, or what I mean by evaluated, I like self-discovery. So I like when someone has an observation, just as much as I like observing other people and offering, maybe when asked, offering advice and whatnot. I love the idea of someone else, like some expert, coming along and just telling me about my idiosyncrasies. It's like, hey, did you notice that you do this a lot? We're not talking about like superficial things, but more like extraordinarily someone that blows my mind about myself. But for the moment, Twitch is not that type of platform, and hobbies don't really do that type of platform. It's not that really that type of thing. So maybe in the future, perhaps. Huh. Didn't realize how small it was. So maybe I should be a little bit more aggressive. Honestly, I think I'm gonna do some line. We're gonna do some line texturing just to give it some panache. We wanted to give it directionality. It might seem like a very little thing, but you'd be surprised how a few lines providing direction for the eyes and produce a dramatic effect, even in the gigantic, even when my probably around. I'm starting to combine all my all my little things that I've been working on in into like a composition. I'm looking forward to making like a composition with all the tools and skills that I like to use, or I've accumulated. I'm doing the cross hatching. I'm doing the cross hatching like separately. I'm cutting down the work by obscuring the parts that are completely black. So instead of like getting a little crazy with cross hatching into near pure blackness with like a regularity, I'm just doing it sparingly to give direction to the composition. And I don't know why I do it. I just do it. I still haven't processed why I like directionality in my artwork, but I do. I really like directionality, so and then we're gonna do one better. We're probably gonna do, this time we're gonna combine something else. So actually, maybe I just go in with a hard line like this. That could work. Oh, it's going on top, so. No, we can't ink like that. Maybe we can. So I'm only hardlining like the darkest parts. Just because you can make it look the edges a lot sharper when you provide if you're using like textured brushes. You can put a hard line where the blacks are, like the super saturated blacks, to kind of imitate what I was talking about yesterday about like there's just pure black areas in a lot of compositions in the indie scene. And what they do is they cleverly make the shapes extremely sharp, even if it's black on black. So like, for instance, there are two objects here. Like I have two mountains here, right? And it's difficult to resolve them. Even if I leave a slight, even if I leave like a slight shading edge. But what you can do is you can just go back across them. If you have a texture brush, you can go back across them with a heavy line And you can still provide some form to them, so that it looks like they're really sharp, right? Because I've cut some corners, basically. I cut some corners on my pencil sharp shading. So what I do is to focus the eyes, you can use a very sharp object, a very sharp platform, and you put it next. If you encapsulate the looseness of your composition, it'll make your composition stick out a lot more. In my opinion, it provides that contrast. And you know what? I'm gonna experiment with something. What if I go back and what if I do this? I'm curious. What happens if I go back with white? I like experimenting with new things, so my approach seems to change willy-nilly until I really land on something I really like. And it's like my approach tends to be like a crazy Frankenstein of things. Okay, so when it hits a really unshaded part, it kind of gets really difficult to see. So I'm doing two-tone light form stuff, just creating edge lighting where there isn't any edge lighting. Okay. It does, the more you work on a piece, I really do agree with most people that says the more you work on a piece, artwork really does pay off. The more the more time you spend on it. Oh, I should have went vertical, but vertical would have taken so long. Yeah, I should have went vertical. That's okay. All right. I avoided the structure. So I totally avoided the structure because I have no idea how to do this. Let's see. None of this is accurate. It's not supposed to be. Because I don't really know. I don't really know how to create that illusion. I kind of want to add another. Which one's line drawing? This one? I kind of want to extend this. Okay. Okay, well, I didn't mean to put it there, but that's fine. Eh, it's pretty aight. Okay. The dreaded whatever this is. I think I could get away with just like maybe like doing this. What up? Let's see. I'm pretty sure I can get away with just doing this. Hmm. I gotta balance the piece. So, it would be kind of neat to get like the eye to like really glow. Some part of me wants to do that. Okay. You know what? Yeah, let's do it. Oh wait. What was that? It was a pop-up. Okay. Neat. I can turn that off for today. Okay. How do I do this? No. That's too fat. Ah, yes. That is some proper brightness right there. Okay. Good enough. I guess I should fade some. They don't kind of feel super sharp. And it makes sense for the the edges. All right. So we finished one side in 2 hours. No. All right. Okay. Well, let's just like ham this home very, very fast and just go. Okay. So. Okay. Okay. We're gonna light guess. Oh, that's white. I'm coloring with white. Oh no. Okay. Let's just start with this stuff because I don't really know. ultimately, most of this is going to be pretty light, so I have to, composition wise, I have to keep the values of this side a lot lighter is my goal. We're using a lot of, oops. Looks like shading in two different two different styles. These lines are so sloppy. Okay. Oops. Putting my pen down. You can be so fast when you're loose. It's pretty satisfying when you know your stuff. I'm not saying I know my stuff really well, but I feel like I know it well enough. And that does emphasize the idea that, yeah, man, art pays dividends when you're always constantly doing it. Ooh, that's a little difficult. Okay. Keep going. See how we can not screw up too badly. I'm cutting so many corners. No one... At least Fictitious isn't here to tell me that I'm a cheater. Cheating! Shh. No one say anything. I'm basically repeating the same pattern over and over again, just to give it like the... When you, there's this thing about your eyes, right? Like, if you repeat a pattern very consistently over and over again, it makes the architecture look really, like, interesting to look at. So, like, if you repeat if you keep repeating the same shading angularly, it makes it look like there's order and form, but really there really isn't actually. It's very scratchy, but if you make the directions well enough, it's sufficient. Right, I still got the road. Nope, I'm going black. Okay. Which one is the line layer? This one? Shh, cheating. I'm cheating more. Okay. And then, we gotta slam this. We're gonna do some lightning slams. Here we go. The massive lightning one more? Okay. Hmm. I just realized I completely skipped the door. What the heck? Oh, wait. Did I accidentally screw this up? What did I do here? Oh, right. Alright. Um... Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. I'll make this like sunken in. And make this in and this out. Okay. It's good enough. I think I should have been a little bit cleaner. Let's try to be. Just two very, I guess, very contrasting. I definitely didn't like the way this part turned out. I could definitely go back and just add a tremendous amount of lines, but it'd be fine. We could like do one last thing here. That might be a little... That's a little too harsh. Let's just imply it. Alright. It's okay. I don't think it was like the best. I feel like definitely some splash of color. It's definitely a splash of color would have been better, but you see what I mean. Yeah, this part is really washed out. I feel like, oh, I know, it needs a little, let's add a few lines. It's void of lines. That's what's making it very bare. Whoa, what is happening there? Oh, I might be, go up here. I'm trying to give it like that it's going left and right so that, it's like a little confused. Okay. All right. So, you can imagine, you can imagine it had colors, right? So you would pick a super saturated color in all the dark spots. And this left side, you could imagine all pastel colors. Like, they'll all look very pastel-y because there's lots of white on the left. So the moment you paint over it, right, when you put your color volume over it, you'll have like super saturated color on the right side, and you're gonna have super pastel-y colors on the left. But you still need to maintain, to make things look dramatic, you still have to maintain the contrast between the dark and the light. So the lighting is what I'm using to compensate for the left side being, it's probably gonna be pretty washed out. Like it'll look something like do I have something that it'll kind of look like really washed out, like this one, but it still has the darkness to the left, so it won't go as dark as the other side, but it's just a contrast between the doom and gloom, the very dark inky stuff, and then the super bright I want to be there kind of home like thing. It's how I imagine the Hobbit, the Shire is always like, it's always basking in sunlight. It always have very light coloring. There's just so much white and light in the, like, white visible light in the Shire. And then in Mount Doom, where Sauron's tower is, it's just really dark. Everything is really dark. But at the same time, when you have super dark environments, you want to have something extraordinarily white in it to like illuminate the thing. And that's what I like about Peter Jackson's approach. Like, he really does the I don't know if you've ever seen Game of Thrones or HBO's Game of Thrones, but the infamous season 8, like the conclusion season 8 had this fight, like this main fight, and it was completely in the dark, like except for flames. Flames were the only source of light, but the direction of the cinematography decided to just mute all the colors, like mute it, make it super dark, make it hard to see, and you get it. It's real, like
it would be more realistic, to be honest. Like, it's very dark. Even with fire, it doesn't like illuminate. Fire doesn't radiate very well to illuminate, and they're out in the open, so light dissipates a lot. But in terms of cinematography and like artistic direction and whatnot, it was a really odd choice, because you as the viewer am trying to watch it. So you have all these beautiful VFX shots, right? Like dragons, fire, like digital fire everywhere, all these beautiful animations, and you can barely see it unless you crank up the gamma. So you go to your monitor or your television set, crank up the gamma, and you can see it, but now everything is washed out. So the tone is different. So you get the left side. What happens when you crank up the gamma, you get what's on the left side, but it's a battle. People are dying. Things are... So what you get is you get this washed out, light brimmed, all the contrast is gone when you pump up the gamma, because they had no contrast in the fight, and it just looked dull. So it didn't have that what Peter Jackson does. So Peter Jackson, he had a lot of practical effects. He had lots of people in armor and whatnot, but some of his main fights, like the 2 tower fight, it's during a lightning storm. And even when the fire is gone and whatnot, there's always beats, deliberate beats of flashing, really overexposed lighting. Like, so even when it's completely dark, just everything is dark, no lights, barely any flames, it's doom and gloom. His choice to spotlight and make it even elevated beyond life is great, and you really don't get turned off by it. Like, a lot of times nowadays we have like really huge HDR stuff and dramatic lighting, the cinema feeling, that whole joke about, well, does it look cinematic and stuff? It can get a little too like beyond life. I get it, I understand, because I had a story, I shared this story before, where I haven't walked into a micro center in a really long time. So a little over half a year ago, I walked into a micro center and I looked at the 4K QLED HDR certified screen, and I watched the image on it. It's like, whoa, it's exactly what I would paint, but it's real life recording. It's a live action recording. I'm like, whoa, I get it. It looks beyond life, but it really looks awesome behind the screen. When you walk outside, it really does make you feel like life isn't that dramatic. So it is an artistic choice. So Game of Thrones, for that battle, they decided to go with realism. They went with hyper realistic, but this is a group of low fantasy lovers. Their audience is low fantasy. They love like things that don't necessarily have to be hyper realistic. So it was easily panned as one of the worst seasons, worst conclusions. Like, that season just got wrecked. It just departed away from a larger than life feel. They still have the muted like blue tones and whatnot, like when you're watching Marvel movies, right? MCU movies, it's very blue. There's so much blue, like it's blue and black. Everything is very unsaturated. It's really washed. There's so much gray and white in all the color tones, because that's reality. Like, we don't run around, like most of the stuff we wear, they tend to be very washed, because I don't know, people don't wear vibrant clothing and whatnot, and a lot of times those vibrant clothing is hard to maintain because things get washed out, like how pigments are made and whatnot. But when it comes to like painting and drawing and stuff and games, I don't really want real life. I want like crazy stuff. I was gonna draw a few characters here, but we're not gonna draw a few characters. Overall, I think it was all right. I didn't know how to make the mountain look like a winding path, so that's probably one of the weaknesses. But I have to say that I could get shading and stuff done. The lighting stuff can be pretty fast. Now, the difference here that doesn't capture what I did yesterday, I think there's a lot more to color and lighting than just volume, right? Because then you wouldn't have to do both, right? I just say that understanding volume is it's like a great starting point to make things safe. But then there's like color complements, like ambient lighting, where like I arbitrarily chose the blue light. Like the moon is usually using like some sort of white light, but I arbitrarily decide to use a blue light. And then like the lamp is arbitrarily chosen to be yellow, but yellow and blue complements each other. They're the two. I always look at this wheel circle, and if you just go across the wheel circle, it's like good enough. And if you want to find the tricolors, it's not really how color, like it's not that simple of color theory, but generally speaking, you are given a color wheel, and the reason why the wheel is represented this way is, to me, it helps me. So like you just go across the circle. If you're choosing two colors, say you have a direct light and ambient light, I just go across 180. So if my direct light is yellow, I'll just go across to blue. And then tricolor, you break the circle into thirds. So like you create a triangle within your wheel. So if you go yellow, you're gonna pick green and you're gonna add some purple. It's not like, there's a lot of cases and fringe cases and all that, but it's just to separate the hues. So you can always separate colors by hue. The digital parameters are, what is it? It's hue, saturation, and luminosity. And I'm probably going to be incorrect about this. I don't know the jargon too well. Luminosity is like, what it translates to is the amount of white and black in the hue, which is what the color wheel is. So the hue represents like combination of the hex code, the RGB stuff. Saturation is how much the specific color is with respect to white and black. I don't really know how to describe it any other way, but saturation is like how not white the hue is, and then luminosity is how white or black the color you chose. They're all intermingled, but I'm saying it that way is because that's how I interpret it. So like, hey, I want this color to really just straight up pop like the color red, I would crank up the hue, right? And then, or I would crank up the saturation. And I'm like, this color is not right, so I'm color matching, I would switch to hue. It's like, I need more lighting, like this needs to be brighter, I would crank up the luminosity or crank down the luminosity. That's, none of that is probably accurate in jargon speak, but in the end, learning how you interpret your tools, I think that's the game changer. I don't think it's necessary to understand the jargon and the semantics the same way everyone else does. But to communicate, you would have to. So you might develop some poor habits but as long as you can explain it, right? Like, I'm pretty sure what I said about hue, saturation, and luminosity is just not accurate to another person. But I can at least demonstrate it practically, or practically on a digital canvas, what I mean. And almost all of this, like going from this, what are some bad backgrounds? Oh, this is one of my first background things that I tried to do last year in Inktober with like luminosity. Like, look at I mean, it still looks okay, but man, I didn't understand. It was very This is more like high school stuff, right? Like you're like, all right, well, we'll just put some strokes here and we'll fan out a little. So it went from, this is where I was last year when I was doing it. This was, what was the prompt? The prompt was, it might have just been deer. It might have been a stag. I think the prompt was stag or something like that. And I took a model, try to do various things and various lighting. It's a lot, it's so less refined, even though it's loose, right? It's the same amount of looseness between this. If you look close, right, it's very loose. What I did was super loose. But there's a far difference between this environment and this environment. And I had a reference for this too. I used a reference for this as well. So they're both semi-referenced stuff, but it's so different. It's gigantic when you start learning the tools and whatnot. I think half the part about digital art, animation, and all that is you know exactly what you want to do, but getting it to do what you want to do is the challenge of digital art, in my opinion. It's not to say that it's practical art is void of that, because you have to find like the right brushes, the right mix and stuff. Digital art has the equivalent. Like, how the heck do you create puddles? Like I think an earlier piece today, I tried drawing flowers. I'm so bad at drawing flowers. Anything that repeats a lot is pretty bad. I did not know how to get water droplets. Like I was improvising, but I kept just adding more and more to the water droplets until like it's okay, but it's nowhere near the reference. Like I just can't get the texture of the water puddles. So like 30 like a big chunk of time was invested in trying to get something to work. Like, so there's a whole nother side of digital art, which is like the art where you make the tools. That would be pretty cool. I would love to see how people make the tools. I really don't like this area. This area is so smooth. Right, you know what? Hold up. It's so smooth. Why is it so smooth? Did I go over it with white too much? Why is this area so smooth? I don't have enough dynamics either. Yeah, there's like that really weird grayness in the back. Oh, maybe. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was from my airbrush. We'll highlight them a little bit. It was from my airbrush that was causing the smoothness. Anyways, good stuff. Let's hit M. Does it still look okay when I hit M? It does, but the hobbit dwelling is totally, the perspective on the hobbit dwelling is totally off. That's fine. Like when I flip it, you can clearly see that I should turn the things a little bit, but it's fine. It's good enough. All right. Anyways, that was a good digression. It's amazing. I finally did an environment piece with no subjects. And it was okay. I combined a few things. I was gonna go back and cross hatch everything, like all these things. I was gonna cross hatch all that. That wasn't gonna happen. That would take another like 2 hours or something. I want a cross hatching tool, like a rake. There is a rake in this. I want a tool that can draw parallel lines next to each other in a manner that I like, but one minute before midnight. Okay, let's save this. I want to also I might do a Bob Ross tutorial just for fun. Today's vision, I was going to try Bob Ross's technique, like where he would take the paintbrush and he would like go down with the paintbrush across the mountain lines and the tree lines to create it, and then like brush swing back and forth with to create tree lines. I was gonna try to do that, but then yeah, like you know, what I did was I do the directional shading, but what Bob does, he does this thing where it's so relaxing to watch him do it. Like for mountains, he would take like some sort of oil slash wet brush that has maybe a slight thing like this, and then he would hold up, bring up the, where he would have a white canvas, but then he would start with his darkest color, so like, you know, and then what he would do is he would just take the gigantic brush and he would start the like to form mountains. I have a better understanding of it now because I've done these before, but like he would do like this, you know, like it would be one direction. Oh wait, and he's using oil, so he would use solid colors. And then he would start with, I mean, honestly, sometimes he starts with just straight up black. So he would take off. What I do when I shade is I would do something like this, where I would start soft, right? And then I would go back. And then go back even more. And then that's how I would form like the side of the mountain. But he does the thing where he does all the layers at once. So he would be like, and now we're gonna put down, oh wait, I have to turn this feature off. We're gonna put down the side of the mountain, you know, the coated, get the mountain feeling like it's a mountain, you know, like you get this mountain, and then he would just like dab randomly, dab something, and then like, all right, now we're gonna add a peak to it, you know, get it to come up. He has his really the thing that I really like, where it's repetition, where he has a really steady hand and he would just continue to layer. He does the true painting thing, like the pragmatic painting thing, where you go from dark to light and then you would just add touches. I should be changing, and he switches really fast his brushes and stuff, and he has control over the size of his brush. So then he would, like, you know, to still continue to deposit. That size is really bad, but he would do that thing, and I was gonna try to create that. I was gonna try to mimic that. So like you just, you know, dab down, and then you have a mountain. You're staring down the side of a mountain. Or he does the tree thing, right? The tree thing, where he has some brushes. I don't know what kind of brush he would. Maybe this type of brush. There's a person who actually try to program the full set of brushes that he used. Like his trees would be something like he would take, after doing art for long enough, it's understandable now. And this one, I would probably, so he would do this, right? Oh wait, see, this brush doesn't have orientation. I need something that actually swipes like this. Okay, so I have a brush that probably swipes, right? No. Does this swipe? Yeah, okay, so this swipes. It's good enough to illustrate the point. But he would use just one singular base colors. So like, okay, right? So that's basically a Christmas tree already. Then he just like varies the volume, like or like the colors, and it'd be like, you just like, he's just, you just see him like use his brush, and he's just, here we go, let's add some life, you know, add some life to the my brush is rotating as I'm doing this. We need like a non-rotating brush like this. You know, we're adding a little highlights. I would call them highlights, but he would just be like talking about bringing the tree to life, you know. You're just adding a little thing, and he would do it in a really tiny area, you know. And I took some of that inspiration of how Bob Ross does it, but I do it differently. Or like he would do just, you know, he would do this little shimmy movement across the tree. It's like, all right, we're making a really happy Christmas tree now. Just repeated patterns over and over again, and it's so satisfying watching him do the repeated patterns. It's kind of like watching someone cross hatching or inking. Like, all right, now the Christmas tree is happy, a little happy little tree. And then now we're just gonna brighten the tree a little bit, add a little, just a little dancing pop to it, you know. Just give it that little shimmer kind of thing with this soft, like the soft voice. And I did do this before. Like I applied it differently, not like how to literally do his way, but I can mimic it fairly successfully with us, like different, but the brushes though, the brushes are where it goes, are where it's difficult. And then he would do this, his composition always have lighting and reflection, but not like dramatic lighting and reflection like I rely on. So he would, at this point, what he would do is he would probably take like a really flat brush. Do I have a flat brush? I mean, this is significantly flat. So, oh no, he has like this wedge thing. What is this wedge thing? He has something super flat. It looks like a wedge brush, but I don't think I have such a thing. But it will look like a roll. Oh no, this roller rotates. So I don't have ways to imitate his hand movement, his canvas movement. The closest I can say, maybe this. No, that's really splashy. I need something flat and a wedge. I think this is the closest I have. So basically I would shrink this to mimic the horizon. So what he would do is he would take like a really dark color, maybe start dark, so like blue, right? And then he would say, oh yeah, see, that doesn't do, wait, I need this. So like he would go, all right, so we're gonna add a line, right? Like this. And then he's gonna pave over it again. But oh no, that's not it. But what this would serve is, it would serve as the water thing. So then he would mimic exactly what he did up here, and he would take the brush and do this really satisfying thing where he like, all right, so we're gonna color, we're gonna take this. Oh, why is this blurry as heck? Kind of a nice, it's kind of a nice texture actually. But so, you know, he would go down here, right? And he would create the reflection. But he would do the same technique by mirroring it. And then in order to create like the water texture, you had to do something else with digital. So you would take like a spoon, which is what he did with a wedge. And you would like do this once you finish the whole piece to make it look like the water, because he always puts huge mountain ranges and trees next to bodies of water to fill in the bottom, right? And that's actually kind of what I did here. I kind of tried to do that early on. Like I tried to make the water look like all scratchy and stuff, but I didn't quite understand all the tools. Pretty nice. I'm more the I guess I'm more the super heavy pencil dude, like the really heavy inking stuff, like things you see in manga artists. For example, if you ever seen Berserk, the Berserk manga, rest in peace, of course. Stuff like this. The super intense inking stuff, that's the stuff that is unbelievably impressive to me. Or it just seems like you probably got so good, that person got so good at doing this stuff. What up? Oh yeah. Like this stuff. Look at this stuff. Look at these lines. It's like reverse cross hatching. It's reverse it's inking. A lot of people just refer to this as inking, but you have volumes and volumes of this. Like, look at these lines. You can't even hold up. Look at this. And I feel like when I'm being very loose, that's what I'm imitating. As long as you can get form down with lots of parallel lines, it's like, okay, you're and then you need solid boundaries. So in the end of the day, if you're really loose, you just go loose really quickly. Make sure all your lines have some directionality in a way that you want it, and then you go back and create the boundaries, the solid boundaries, and you create enough form that your eyes just fill in the rest. Like most people, when they look at images, they'll fill in the rest. And he has straight command of lighting, right? So you have complete blacks, but there's no complete black next to really close black. There's always a boundary of opposite volume. So even if you have black right next to black, it can be separated by even the smallest lines. And then you highlight the subjects. And a lot of times there's this duality. You can highlight one subject in complete white and then one subject in complete black. And you can create like a two subject composition very well. But this is what I mean when I say mangakas, like manga artists, are very exceptional. I do feel it's very underappreciated because people think like hyperrealism, yes, great, like hyperrealism is fantastic as well, but the sheer like this is just one page. It's one page. It's one panel. I think it's one panel. I just spent 4 hours doing something with 10% of the lines in this. Like this, there are more lines probably in these little things than my entire left side of my prompt. It's crazy. I absolutely love this stuff. But I can see it though. If you do it, I can see trying to do some of these and getting faster and faster. But man, it's so beautiful. At least in my opinion, for black and white. And then since I don't really see the image right away in color, you can just imagine, just plop a color on there and it just fills it in. Because if you understand how to do this in black and white, like the way it is, once you splash the color, you know, pick your favorite complementary colors or color theory, it would just come out. And I think that's a little bit hard to appreciate when if someone hasn't done art themselves, but it's crazy. There was another artist that I really liked. He did Blades of the Immortal, and for the longest time, hope it doesn't give me the live action or the, it did give me, so this guy who originally did it, Hiroyuki Samura, he received a lot of praise in his early days. I don't know if this series is still going, but since then Amazon commissioned a adaptation of it in anime. It was okay, and then there was a live action. I think Miike did it, right? Yeah, Takashi Miike did a live action adaptation, but this would be, he would produce volumes, like gigantic volumes of just this. You can see some loose forms, so you can see directional, not necessarily, it's kind of like, it's tonal line work as opposed to cross hatching, because he doesn't actually necessarily cross anything, it's just tonal. You can see the directionality of most of his strokes, and then he has tons and tons of extra lines. And I've been trying to, when I do pencil work like what I just did, I'm ultimately imitating what like some of the most prominent manga artists or did or is still doing, but I'm using a side shader to cut corners as well, because this person combines all of them too. Like this is where I got the idea of like side shading, then adding lines on top, and if time permits, you can produce exceptional stuff. Like look at wait, let me pull this up. Oh, it's not big enough. Look at all these lines. It's just one page. Just one page. And then you start hearing like, oh yeah, hands can get rough, like it takes a lot of endurance. And it's like, I totally believe it. There was another one, Vagabond. Vagabond is another manga that this guy, these two are often compared. The Berserk artist who recently, the mangaka who recently passed away, the Berserk, versus the Vagabond. I don't know if the Vagabond mangaka is still alive, but this would be like one panel, like even his even the person's ink work back in 2007 was like excessive, but then it just keeps going. It just gets so much more absurd, like scenes would be just drenched in ink. Like it's and you see their trees are so much different from Bob Ross's, but I kind of appreciate both. Like look at this is one panel. Unfortunately, oh wait, anime, I don't really have it. That's a tough question. I'm a very transient person, so I would say generally speaking, my favorite manga or anime is the most recent thing I've watched because it's the thing that I remember best, generally speaking. So the most recent thing we watched, actually, by coincidence, it's not necessarily the best one we watch. We watch anime on Friday, like me and 2 other people watch anime on Fridays, or we try, and we watch like 6 episodes. We watched the second series of When They Cry, Hirugashi When They Cry. So it's a Hirugashi Kai, and it was all right. The artwork was not my cup of tea. It's an older series, so it features like imagine doing this first though. As a side note, I'll show you a screenshot of Hirugashi if you are not familiar. But imagine doing this. Inktober, 1 prompt. Here it is, right here. Do this prompt. Use this as reference. Like, look at the, like, use this, look at this cross hatching. It's so beautiful. This cross hatching is absolutely amazing. But this left side, your goal, do this in an hour. I mean, this guy probably did it in, you know, less than that, but that is absurd. I wouldn't even know where to start, like, because the dude is doing it by hand, right? I could see myself cheating. Like, let's see, did he repeat? Can you see? Yeah, nowadays you would do like, I know, right? The story. Oh yeah, for sure. So this is the most recent. So When They Cry, hi. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but this is what we watched recently. Before that, we watched I watched Odd Taxi. I don't know if you've seen Odd Taxi, but Odd Taxi is super stylized. It's beautiful, and it's about perspective. It's synesthesia adjacent. But When They Cry, this is you see how this is the old manga style, where like, I mean the old anime style where heads are questionably disproportionately gigantic and eyes are possibly questionably unreasonably gigantic, and most of the characters look like lolly characters, that kind of thing. But it's a very mature theme thing. Like it's meant to draw contrast to the context of the show. The show is actually quite, this is the specific one, the specific iteration. It's like a kind of alternative horror / drama, kind of paranormal thing. But Odd Taxi I would say if recently, a recent memory, Odd Taxi would be, if you're a Western audience, like if you're someone who's into storyboarding, like Scorsese like, but maybe splash in a little bit of British composition, where like a series of unfortunate events, or what a coinky dink, things that are, but all wrapped up in existential and human like condition piece, it would be this. And looks can be deceiving. Everyone's anthropomorphic for a reason, but I won't spoil why they're anthropomorphic. But Odd Taxi, it was a sleeper hit. It's a very like rare gem kind of thing. It's one of those where it will win a Sundance Film Festival, but it would not win the Oscars because it's not popular enough to generate that. I have watched Erased, at least the one Erased series. I don't know if there's gonna be another or not, but that one. This one's okay. The art style is sufficient. The subject matter was interesting to me, so I really got into this one. It was pretty good. It was available on Netflix, I think, so I watched it. It was, or one of the, it was Netflix. I didn't watch if there was any follow-up. I think it was one. You like the art in this one? Interesting. In terms of anime art, like in, let's say, a Japanese production one, I would say in the recent years, oh, I mean, the most recent I watched was Edge Runner. Let's just go over that. It's Edge Runner. It's Trigger Studio, Edge Runner. If there's anything bombastic and super lighting and edgy and encompassing all the modernizations of like rim lighting and getting your values, it's Trigger. Studio Trigger has captured that. Like, and then Studio Trigger also likes to flex their CG, their blending, the seamless blending of CG, and because there are tanks and mechs and stuff in the game, in the show, because it's a cyberpunk show. But Edge Runners, I mean, anime. Technically, this is a Western collab with an Eastern one. Something with like exceptional art direction. I mean, I can't, I have to give a nod to Miyazaki, right? Like, you can't really be an animator or appreciate animation without Miyazaki, much less like when you talk about, you know, you talk about Mickey Mouse, Disney and stuff, but you can't really also ignore the other half of the world. I wouldn't compare Miyazaki with Disney though, because Miyazaki himself does not like that comparison, and I don't think there is a comparison there. But you can't forget Miyazaki. Like, I want to do, I would love to conceptualize things like this. Look at that beautiful thing. And a lot of people would think, would focus like, oh yeah, but his characters are no big deal. It's like, yeah, they're drawn in a specific way, but have you seen his world? Oh, this is a really cute thing. Whoever drew this is pretty, that's a really cute abstract. I love Porco Rosso though, and it's one of his more tame pieces. But Miyazaki, you can't not appreciate Miyazaki if you're an animator. They did, and they did it in isolation too. If you think about it, they did quite do it a lot in isolation of each other. Like, they didn't cross paths. You know, a lot of times they would think like, oh, this influenced this influenced this. It's like, sometimes coincidences are coincidences. Humans are fantastic in that way. They can bring together things in a separate case. But to me, I more grew up with Disney, but came to love Miyazaki. Like, I've come to love more the Eastern art than the Western, but now they're like married together, right? Now there's this thing where you marry the two, and I'm all about that. I mean, I myself am a product of multiculturalism, so give me Totoro chase give me Mickey Mouse chasing after Totoro. Like, someone do a prompt where Mickey Mouse is shaking hands with Totoro. That's fine. I'm totally all for that. And it would be like this jarring contrast too. Like, I'm not talking about draw Mickey Mouse in the style of Miyazaki, or draw Totoro in the style of Walt Disney. I'm talking about just have them in the same plane, grounded in the same way, but just completely contrasting to each other. I'm all for that. That idea sounds amazing. What's a good one with clashing? At the moment, I can't think of the top off my head. A show that has a piece of artwork that has great. I love crossovers too. You know what? Let's see what Google. Well, we'll do it later. I gotta look up crossovers. I do enjoy the whole crossover idea too. When you combine something. Oh, like for example, there's channels, right, that are dedicated to this, where they would draw a character and they would just try to capture the essence of like 14 different popular manga artists. And just seeing it side by side is amazing. It's one day I want to say that if I look back, I can quantify, and I would love to see someone. I would love to refine my personal whatever style or something at some point and have someone else draw a convincing thing that would convince the person that it was drawn by me. I know how that sounds because of AI drawing, you know, like the idea is if you make a living off art, you kind of don't want that to happen. You want to be very unique. But for me, I'm not a professional artist. I don't do artwork for a living. My perspective is really bent towards spreading influence, right? So I would love to see one day someone could make a piece of artwork and fool someone to thinking it was made by me. That would be really fun. I don't know how like people like Miyazaki or stuff feel when, you know, say AI generate art. That whole conversation about AI generate art and stuff's like how it feels to be imitated or copied. To me, since it's not my livelihood, I find it's the I adhere to that saying, like imitation is the best form of flattery. And for me, I don't ever consider myself as a trendsetter or a pioneer. So if there's anyone that can study me enough to pass off things as my work, that's pretty impressive. And I take that as the one of the biggest compliments I could ever have. Like someone who ever decides, I didn't grow up wanting role models. I didn't grow up desiring that type of thing, but it's very normal. It's a very normalized behavior to want to find the best or what you think is the best, draw inspiration from it, and then bend it and iterate it to your own. Myself, even when I was growing up, I didn't have that type of aspiration. Legitimately, it was observe and integrate. Observe and integrate. Not out of aspiration to capture someone's essence, but just to keep filling my toolbox. Do I want to create something original? I don't have an aspiration for that either. I bet you do though, Story, for sure. Like I just want to make something that celebrates the craft. I don't want to make something because it's an expression of my own identity or something like that. I don't really require that. Just the appreciation that people can make such beautiful things, bring tears and joy to households is sufficient. And it would be wonderful if I could be able to do that at some point. I mean, I did ended up being a scientist though, so, or was maybe still consider myself as a scientist. But artwork was a great outlet for the idea of conveying or trying to elicit emotions where science really can't. It's very hard to grasp the worth and value of research. So the closest I've gotten to expressive art is probably this prompt that I did a little bit ago. It was match. This is when I started doing I like inverted paintings. I like inverted artwork. And I just can't get these things. Like, what I mean is when I get a prompt, the stuff isn't like mind-blowing. What I mean by it is I envy those individuals who can lift themselves from the bounds of reality and lift themselves from hyperrealism, so to speak. And the whole lighting, color, like landscapes, all that stuff, that's my fascination with leaving myself. Like I'm a guy who grew up most of my life learning about the physical world, learning about logic, objectivity, problem solving. It is grounded in this bias towards, being logical and all and whatnot, observable things. But art is transcendent beyond what is realistic. So in a way, I'm kind of almost biased towards avoiding hyperrealism, mainly because I know that best. So I'm constantly thrill seeking for ways to bring feelings that are beyond reality, beyond. So as much as I want to draw a full representation of a mountainside that looks gloriously like HDR, like going to the mountains, I can just go to the mountain. Like I would give you a photograph of the mountain. It's super impressive that people can do that. Just saying, like they can do that. It's really brilliant. But that's like trying to understand myself, and 30 years of self-awareness, and it's not as exciting. So now you play these video games and you you watch anime, you watch freaking Arcane, and you just think, man, how did they get that smoke to look so alive? That's what I want to know, because I can't imagine how to make the smoke alive yet. So art has largely done that. Like, I'm trying to make light dance, I'm trying to make light feel something, I'm trying to make color do something, not just because it's color. So like a plant is green, right? I mean, provided it has chlorophyll in it and whatnot. But how can you make that green tell you that plant is happy? How can you make the plant look happy when you can't imagine, like you can't observe it? Obviously a plant doesn't have like a smiley face on it or something, or a pot can't dance around. So that's the magic of Disney. That's the magic of Miyazaki. That's the magic of lots of the early, most influential animators. They turn our reality and they turn objects and stuff and color into something so expressive. And that's worth noting, because as an animator, if an aspiring animator, you can compare and contrast the reception of the target audience and their feeling between, say, the classic Disney movies and their live action counterparts. There's pros and cons to both, for sure, where I can see the appeal and the drawbacks of both. But one thing that could, it's still debatable, but one thing is that one can observe that is absolutely, without a doubt, a fact and a truth, is The Lion King, realistic lions don't have facial muscles. That's all I'm saying. That's a fact. That there's a lack of dynamic facial muscles on gigantic felines. So when it comes to expressing something, the animated, stylized old Lion King technically is more facially expressive than the hyper-realistic uncanny valley lion in the Lion King. So with that said, though, both movies were well received, you know, they were really great. I enjoyed both, but there's something to be said about you don't downplay the live action just because they lack facial muscles. The animators had to do realistic, but the voice acting can carry expression as well. So when you can actually create that image of the lion smiling but not really smiling through voice action and action, like why do you think your dog is sad? Well, it looks sad. What? The dog doesn't have facial muscles to communicate non-verbally that it by looking sad. Okay, so it's its actions, the sound, the context. You're personifying the dog. So just as much as that, there is a bias. And I think Walt Disney's pursuit in bringing their original movies, their pivotal movies to live action is a daunting task, because the normalized behavior is that seeing the thing is such a strong driver for reception of the target audience. Implied perception is not very strong, so a lot of people would immediately write off the Lion King, like Jon Favreau's, I think he was the director of the live action Lion King, would be like, oh yeah, it's emotionless, you know, like they no longer smile, or like you can't see the crying and whatnot. It's like, meanwhile, those same people can probably see their dog crying and smiling, and you might think, oh nah, now this is selective baloney, right? In fact, there's a lot of science behind how we see things. There was a really interesting research that came out that took serendipitous samples from brain reading from individuals. Just by sheer coincidence, there was a chance to look at how people perceive images, like the real image, what's in front of you, and what you're perceiving. And ultimately, actually, what that research alluded to, it's not like it's research, it's small sample, it's a serendipitous cohort. Nevertheless, it would suggest that what we perceive supersedes what we actually observe. I know I'm using words that are often interchangeably synonymous with each other, but it's kind of how I describe my artwork, right? How I describe composing artwork. When you see an image, you don't see literally the thing. You don't observe literally the thing often. You actually perceive it goes through a filter, right? It's your brain that creates the image. The literal image that's deflecting and bouncing off your eyes is not the first product. It's not the final product that you observe. And there's some empirical data that would suggest that is the case. So when someone wants hyperrealism, I take a photograph. I'm not saying you have to agree. I'm not saying any artists, photographers have to agree. For myself, in how I understand the information, the limited information, perhaps that will change in the future with more information. The perception is, if I want to effectively communicate hyperrealism to someone, I would take a photograph. There are individuals who can replicate what they literally observe through their eyeball unadulterated, for sure. But are those people more interesting to me than individuals who see something and when they paint it out, it's like, this is literally what I saw that day. It's like, I believe you. Because perception supersedes observation a lot of times. So when I go to the beach and I see something, I don't actually see something. Oh wait, I have a good prompt that illustrates this. I had a digression. I already like kind of digressed it when I did this piece back on the 12th day. It's very blurry because I didn't add any line art at the end. But, and then there's a lot of bloom. Like I added a lot of bloom. But for example, there's a tree, right? You see a tree. You sit there, you look at the tree. What do you see? Do you see just the tree? Like, are you really literally just seeing the tree? On the one hand, you can convince yourself what you're seeing is the literal tree. You take a photograph, you confirm, yeah, that's definitely what you see, right? Because a photograph can't interpret, it can't filter, as far as we know, right? But you're also looking at the photograph. That's the unfortunate part. As while the photograph captures something, looking at the photograph also goes through a filter, and perhaps your interpretation of a photograph is still not what is observed. There's all that whole like inception thing going. But when I see a tree, I don't see just a tree. I see the seasons. I see the colors that the tree can be and cannot be. I see it in a different environment. It doesn't have to be a warm summer's day. The tree is green. It's like I could see a dead tree in the middle of summer when the tree in front of me is clearly not, or leafless, right? So that's what art is, at least. That's what makes art compelling, in my opinion, personally. But it's still fantastic that people can photographically, like photorealistic stuff. I love the time lapse. Those people who do the time lapse where they make the object, like they paint a hyper realistic object, but it looks like it's literally on top of their canvas. When you see it, you just can't distinguish. Like I can't visually distinguish because I don't have enough skills to pick out what the object is, like where the canvas starts and where the canvas ends. And that's so cool. Like when people draw like a bag of Lay's, right? And you just watch them say, yeah, I see them drawing it, but I just don't believe that it's not, like the canvas is shifted. Where does the table end and the canvas start? It doesn't get. That's amazing. Just an entirely different type of creative process. Or those people who can my favorite ones are the people who print. So like a printer, like an ink printer, they would draw like just scan lines. They would just scan line their portrait in, and that's crazy. That's just another flip side. One last thing. YouTube short. There was a YouTube short of a person who did a 4D painting, a 4D drawing. And this is a very controversial. I realized that apparently 4D drawing or 4D rendering is a thing, and it has something to do with like some mathematical formula that I'm not talking about that type of 4D thing. Like when I typed in 4D thing, you got like different interpretations of what 4D is, and we're not talking about like time is the 4D, but in this case, in the YouTube short, it is time. And it was not like time lapse, like you watch someone draw. It is kind of like that, but the context, their artwork was legitimately aging. It was so beautiful. So basically, the person drew two subjects, like it's either a son and their parents. Oh no, it's a couple. It's a wife and a husband, or like two friends. And first they drew as kids, and then they drew over. They transitioned the kids into teenagers, and then teenagers into adults, and then adults into parents, and then parents into grandparents. Like the two subjects legitimately went through the time lapse. Like, so it's like an inception. The drawing was time lapsed, but the drawing's subjects also time lapsed with the drawing, like with the person drawing. 4D painting. It was amazing, brilliant. And it was the first time I've seen that. I agree with whoever posted that YouTube video, YouTube short. I haven't seen something like that, and now I'm starting to think, oh man, it's like animation, but not. It's like, it's not traditional animation, but it's so satisfying. Like you start thinking, okay, well, you can do that with animation. You just draw the 4 frames, right? 4 key frames, and then draw the in-betweens and do a morph or something. But this person literally took a pencil and drew on top of it on his piece, and it was brilliant. I mean, it is a form of animation though, but still. Anyways, that's the last thing I want to talk about in animation. We finished day 25. A little hour past midnight for me. Let's take a sneak peek of tomorrow's prompt. And I'll post this prompt. When I know I don't have time to color, when I know I don't have time to color, I usually just do pencil drawing or pencil shading stuff to save some time. I think color picking and whatnot is still a little bit time consuming. Okay. 26 tomorrow, or today for me. The prompt is ego. We're gonna have to think about that one too. I'll think about it tomorrow. But before we do that, I guess I'll define ego. Let's see what the mainstream kiddos get when they Google ego. A person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. Alright, that's the noun. What about adjective? Can it be used as an adjective? No? Okay. Psychoanalyses. Is this Freudian? The part of the mind that mediates between... Yeah, that's Freudian. Metaphysical. A conscious thinking subject. Interesting. In philosophy. Alright. Person's self-esteem. I have a very depressing prompt idea, but we'll do that tomorrow. Alright. For anyone who was listening, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for chilling. Thanks for listening to my rant. I would love to see other people's story. Oh no, story. I forgot to ask you about your story time. I wanted to ask you a few questions. Man, I gotta remember to write this down. I wanted to ask you like the ups and downs, or like the memorable moments of your 3 years in animation school. We'll do that another time. It's probably really late. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Whoever's chilling and hanging out. I'll be back with another prompt tomorrow. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy, Take care of yourself. Win the lottery for me, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.